Hi everyone. People say that I've done a lot of things. I think I've accomplished a lot. I think of myself as just a regular guy, but I'll say without pride or shame, but just as point of fact of some things that I've done. I got the PhD in physics. I helped put a satellite into space. I've started a couple companies. I've run a few marathons. I have 6 patents. I'm a professor. I've been written up in almost every media outlet. Lots of different things like that. And I want to tell you what I think is the most important thing to accomplish a lot, to be productive. A few years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I read an article in the New York Times. The reporter went to a bunch of fitness experts and asked them if you could name one exercise and one exercise only, what would be the best exercise? So I'm reading and they say, well, first they said the butterfly swim stroke, but then they said it's really hard to do and you need a swimming pool, so it's not a very attractive one to do. And then they said the next one was something called a burpee, which I'd never heard of. I see some people nodding, named after some guy named Burpee. It's like you drop down, do a push-up, and then jump up. And they said that's a really great exercise, it works your whole body, but who would really do just burpees? So then they eventually settled on walking as being the most effective exercise because it's very accessible. So I didn't think much of it, but then a little while later, I'm having drinks with a friend of mine, and I tell him about this article. And the next day, by chance, I get an email from him saying, Josh, those burpees are really hard. I could not even do 10 of them. I could only do 6. So I'd never done a burpee. I didn't really think about it. I looked it up to see what one was. And I did 10 burpees, and I wrote them back. 10 burpees is kind of hard. And I wrote them back, and I said, well, you get credit for 10 more, because I did 10 that I would not have done otherwise. And as I was typing it, I thought to myself, and I wrote out to him, we're going to do 10 burpees a day for the next 30 days. And since then, I've told this story. People have told me, if you do a habit for 27 days, I didn't know anything about that. I was just a friendly thing between 2 friends. And so we decided to do 10 burpees a day for that month. So we started, and we said we'd email or text or call every single day. So for the next month, we did it. And 10 became 11, 11 became 12, 12 became 13. And then at one point, he decided to double it and do 1 set in the morning, 1 set in the evening. And I started really enjoying this. I mean, at Foundation, it was a friendly, fun thing to do. A lot of people who do a lot of burpees are like, burpees are hell. It's like tough, but it was a kind of fun thing. And at one point while doing it, I thought, I'm not just going to do this for 30 days. I'm going to do burpees forever, which is a pretty big decision. But I decided I was going to do burpees forever. Just quick jumping to the end. This was 4 years ago. I've recently passed about 60,000 burpees. I do 26 every morning, 26 every evening because they've been adding up. Actually, it doesn't do a pull, so I also do pull-ups. And in part because of this, the abs started coming in, which is a good motivator. So I do some sit-ups too and some crunches. So this was a really great thing that happened to me. I kind of stumbled into it. Now separately, this guy found my blog, a guy named Joel Runyon. I'd never met him before, but he's a cool guy. I've met with him online now. And I go to his website, and I look at his website, and he's got this thing called cold shower therapy. He takes cold showers. And I have, at times, because of necessity, taken a shower that was cold, but not on purpose. And he's got this TEDx talk where he talks about how he wasn't living a great life at the time. And he won a contest, I think, so he got to talk to some famous entrepreneur who he never names. And he meets with the guy, and the guy says, it sounds like you want to start a company, but you never have. Why haven't you? And Joel says, well, I don't have the time. I'm trying to save up the money. I'll do it later. What I'm doing is just as good. And this famous entrepreneur, whom I don't know, says, okay, but why haven't you started your company? And Joel's like, I just answered that. And so he says the exact same answer again. Don't have time, don't have the money, trying to save up, that sort of thing. And the guy says, I'll tell you why I haven't started a company. Tomorrow morning, take a cold shower. And Joel's like, that's weird. And he doesn't think much of it, but the next morning he's thinking, all right, I'm going to go take a cold shower. And he walks over to the shower, and as he reaches over to turn it on, suddenly he's like walking over calm, and suddenly he's like, I'll do it later. I'll save up the money. I'll do this. All the things for why he wasn't starting a company went through his head, and he realized it's the same thing. So I'm reading this and watching this, and I'm reading through the posts that people have responded to him with, and I'm thinking, this isn't just about doing something challenging or something hard. When I look at what people have done, they turn around, it's a life-changing thing. And so I'm thinking, at first I think, oh, I should try this. And then the more I read, I'm thinking, I should try this soon. And then I keep reading, I'm thinking, I should try this right away. And then eventually I get to the point, I just go to the cold shower, turn on the cold, don't even touch the hot, and I go in and take the cold shower, and it's like really hard. And oh, by the way, minimum 5 minutes. And when it's done, when you finish a cold shower, you are not bored. You are not like, what am I going to do? It's like you are invigorated. You're like full of energy. And I thought to myself, I'm going to do this every day for 30 days. So this was in December a couple of years ago. And I started taking cold showers every day. And actually, do you guys remember this polar vortex thing that came through? So after I finished my 30 days, like a couple days later, that came through and the temperature dropped a lot. And, you can't control the temperature of the cold water. You get what you get. So of course you want to get a personal best. So during that polar vortex, I got 39.9 degrees. There's like purple fingertips. It kind of hurts, but no risk of injury, no pain, no time out of your schedule. In fact, it gives you time because you tend to take shorter cold showers than other ones. And it's just what you're going to do anyway. You just don't touch that knob. You just touch the one on the left. Anyway, one time when I'm taking the cold shower, I'm thinking to myself, this is really invigorating. There's something like the burpee here. There's something really incredible about this that's helping me understand my priorities, do what I want to do. I think there's a lot of things that people do. Some people take 5 photographs every day, or they come up with a business idea every day, or they talk to a stranger every day, or they do yoga, or they meditate, they lift weights. And I'm thinking, there's something that seems similar to all of these things. Why is someone who lifts weights every day, how are they like someone who meditates every day? It looks very different, but I think if you got them together, they'd have something in common. And what I put together was that all of these things, and there's no scientific proof, just what I've put together is that they seem self-imposed. If you're going to lose your partner because if you don't go to your job, that doesn't count. Something that you choose to do daily, or at least regularly. Challenging. Reading doesn't count for me. It has to be something hard. Healthy. So like smoking cigarettes doesn't count. It has to be something that it makes your life better in some way. And active, something that you're physically actively doing. Meditation, I think, counts. You're sitting still, but it's hard to do. And I put these things together. Self-imposed, daily, challenging, healthy activity. SIDCHA. Made Sidcha. I mentioned this because I was talking to a friend, and he was like, Sidcha.com is available. So I got Sidcha.com. I haven't done anything with it yet. But the Sidcha is, I think, an incredibly important concept of setting a foundation for your life. Every day, you do your Sidcha. And if you do that, it sets a foundation below which one day I was coming home on the subway. I was really unhappy. Sometimes you're feeling miserable and you just want to stay feeling miserable. You're like, oh, those happy people, they're not really happy. I know how life really is. I'm coming home and I'm like, and sometimes when you feel that way, you feel like that's real. You want to feel miserable. I'm thinking, I want to stay miserable just because, I don't know, dwelling in it. And I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, oh man, I'm going to get home and I'm going to do those burpees. And I'm going to be happy again, but I want to stay miserable. So I get home and I'm like, well, I'm not going to let a little misery get in the way of my burpees. So I get home, I'm miserable, I do the burpees, and I'm fine. I'm kind of feeling like, damn it, I lost the misery, but I was like, I didn't want it. I didn't want to get happy, but I did get happy. And that's something that happens when you have a Sidcha. It's like, if things go bad in life, see, I do them twice a day, so I never have more than 12 hours that things could possibly get bad before it rebounds and things are fine again. And it always works. I haven't done this study, but I would put any money down that if we found a bunch of people and measured who were successful by their own standards, and we asked them how successful they were, and checked for correlation with some sort of thing in their life that's a Sidcha, I bet the correlation is very high. And I mentioned there's a lot of different things that a lot of people do that are kind of Sidcha related. So meditation, writing things down, talking to strangers, all sorts of things like that. First I thought, I'm going to take the Sidcha, I'm going to make this concept take over all these other ones. It's going to be the big one. And then I realized those other things are Sidchas. They're all things that people can do self-imposed, daily, challenging, healthy activities. I felt like there's something different between the concept of Sidcha and those. And finally I realized those things, I thought I had something better, but it's not that a Sidcha is a better concept. I think it's more all-inclusive, but really it's that there's a lot of advice out there to say, meditate every day, do yoga every day, lift weights every day. You guys have all heard these sorts of things, and it feels to me like when they suggest to you, do this thing, if you're already doing something else, you feel like, well, I got to drop that, and you end up going back and forth between lots of different things. You end up blowing in the breeze. And I think the value of the Sidcha is that it says if you're doing something that's self-imposed, daily, challenging, healthy, and active, then when someone says to you, well, you should also do this, you can say to them, well, no thanks, I already got a Sidcha. I don't have to do that one. You can if you want. You can switch over and do another one. But as long as you're doing something that's self-imposed, daily, challenging, healthy, and active, then you're always going to have that foundation on which you can build everything else. So while I recommend burpees, and I recommend cold showers, now I do them once every 4 days. So daily, fourth daily. So tomorrow's the 24th, 6 times 4, yeah. So tomorrow I have to take a cold shower. But I recommend finding something, making sure it's a Sidcha, and keeping with it. And then if anyone says, well, you should also do this other thing, if it's better than one you have, you can switch, but you don't have to. And keep that as a foundation for being more productive. Thank you.
That was awesome. You know, I hadn't ever heard the Sidcha thing from start to finish. Like,
yeah.
I meditate and I do all kinds of stupid, aggravating things that I hate doing that make me happier. And I never heard this.
I think he's seen me do Sidchas on like several different continents by now.
Sidchas on different
Some
continents.
burpees in particular.
True. So, cool. We're going to moderate Q&A. I'm going to give you the rules. I would like to direct all speakers, and please leave a seat for Kai, who's going to set up cameras and things, to sit in this row where John is right there. So instead of having a panel in the front, we're having a side panel. It works. It works. That was Kai's joke. I stole it. So that row right there. And let me give you the rules. Violate them at your own peril. Theoretical questions are absolutely not allowed. Now, this is a pretty smart audience, so we'll actually explicitly just call you out on it. You should know better. What's a theoretical question? Kai, do you prefer Plato or Aristotle? Which one's a better philosopher? No, it's a theoretical question. Aristotle, by the way. But that's a theoretical question. What should it be? It should be something personal for you that you can do to make your own life better, and you should contextualize why you're asking. There's also sneaky theoretical questions, which we also don't want. That's, Carlos, how did you get started? Sounds like it's a real question, but it's also theoretical. But, Carlos, how did you get started? Because I want to do business in a language that's not my native language, and I'm a little scared. That's a good question. Okay? Speakers, I'm going to limit it to 1 or 2 answers per person until we get through everybody, but then we can do a second round of questions. If this is the third person, you really need to look at me, and I'll call on people, and there's a black magic to it. Just trust it. I know a lot of times everyone will have something to say, but we get through 2 questions if everybody gives an answer each. Snappy answers, not too long. If I hurry you up, please don't hate me. It's just you gotta get these things really moving. And then please do not get Socratic speakers. Please do not ask questions back to dialogue, because it makes the answer twice as good for the one person and bores everyone else to death. So those are the rules, and we'll moderate. Who's going to be the brave soul that wins glory for themselves and all of their descendants and ancestors by going first? Really? It's hard to go first. Yes, sir. What's your name?
Daniel.
Daniel.
Yeah, so is it okay to ask questions about business?
As long as it's personal and actionable.
Great. Okay, so I work at a nonprofit, and our target customer is somebody who's able to work remotely, has disposable income, and is interested in doing intensive meditation practice. And the kind of constraint we have right now is actually that because of strange legal issues that I won't get into, we can't publish on the internet about this program. And so I'm curious if anybody has any thoughts about how to connect with people that fit that demographic, or how to even create an accurate enough customer persona that will allow us to access those people and sort of do it through back channels like perhaps LinkedIn or email networking or referrals or something, if people have ideas about that.
Who's got an answer there? Kai?
There's a pretty extensive network on Slack called, I think it's Nomads, or Nomads at Slack, and a lot of these similar communities exist. So yeah, there's a few search terms around Nomad, and yeah, I think that's where I would start.
You said it quickly. Can you say it again?
The characteristics?
Yeah.
Yeah, so is able to work remotely, has disposable income, and is interested in doing intensive meditation practice within a community.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind to me is direct contact with them and using existing networks like the Goenka, like the Vipassana and things. I think there are a lot of them pretty well tuned in with each other. And if you can get into those networks and probably event coordinate, doing in-person events.
In-person events.
Yeah, like this.
Something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Keep around for going first. It's hard to go first. Who's gonna win Eternal Glory's silver medal? Yes, sir. And your name?
Nate. So I have a question that is it okay if I ask one specific panel member question?
Try not to, but I'm gonna let it go. But nobody else gets to do it.
Okay.
You get to be the last person that gets to ask a specific panel member's question, please.
Oh wait, this is for Carlos specifically.
Sure.
So you mentioned, basically, setting up collaborations with people that you've interviewed.
Yeah.
What is the collaboration that you've enjoyed the most?
The collaboration I enjoy the most, and I recommend actually.
Why is this personal?
Yeah, I was gonna turn it into why is this personal? What is your situation?
I'm also interested in interviewing with people in
You're a little lost, yeah. Yeah. So I'll tell you, the best thing I've done was there was this guy I was following online for a while. We were emailing each other for a while, a little bit, and then eventually said, hey, I really got into all of your books and stuff. It's amazing. I would love to help you in anything you can, in anything you have to give me to help you with. And he's like, okay, cool, let's try it. And we worked together. I helped him with his with the project he was working on for 3 months for free. That eventually then became my full-time mentor and became my full-time job that I did remotely, and it's still the best job I've ever had. So working for free for somebody that you admire a lot, totally recommend.
Cool. Great question. Who's up? I think they're telling me to everybody, so like if you're it's not so big that you can hide, I'm gonna find you, right? It's like so. Yes. Sir.
I was wondering how.
And your name, I know it, but.
I'm Aaron, student here. I was wondering how you decide how to take breaks and how to sort of get back on track when you fall off track. So I had been having a bunch of good habits for a month, and then I had midterms, I got a cold, you can tell.
Well, for me, because that happened a lot when I started my mentorship program, and it would be you'd have kind of this drop where things weren't going well, you'd have an event, no one showed up. That happened in our first couple months, and then I would try and think back to what initially got me motivated, and there was certain mentors that did, and then certain people that I'd interacted with that kind of invigorated me and created kind of this internal motivation. And I tried to kind of pinpoint those and then go back to those, especially when you're in that kind of situation. And then also just giving yourself leeway, because starting anything new is not hard. It's not easy, and it's something where you really got to be persistent and just be okay with yourself kind of messing up and going forward.
And I'd say anything you do kind of hinges on you recognizing that you're off pace, that you're compromised, that you're not making your best decisions. So I like to just build in little automatic reminders that give me a chance of snapping out of it. So I have my computer set on to announce the time every 15 minutes, so I never just zone out for 2 hours straight. I used to have a phone notification that would ask me a question about how I was doing, how was I feeling, is there anything that could make me more productive, more focused, and that would pop up every 2 hours.
Can I do one thing?
Okay.
Have Sinchas. When you come home drunk and you still do your burpees, that practice is what keeps you from, you never go below a certain level. It's those hard ones are the ones that get you stable on things like this.
And let me give you a quick take on if your habits totally disintegrated and you had 10 that were really good. You're writing, you're meditating, you're doing you're doing everything. You're studying, you're doing fitness, and they all just disintegrate. What do you do? There's I found only two things that work. Either you go one at a time. You drop everything. You drop all the pressure. When you have a self-sustaining thing, you're sleeping well, you're eating well, you're exercising well, you're studying, you're with people, you're meditating, you're doing everything right. It's all giving you energy. But when they all fall apart and you're eating junk and you're sleeping poorly and you're drinking too many Red Bulls, and then you feel bad and you actually don't have the energy to install them. Because it takes a lot of work to install a habit that then pay you back, right? So you first off forget everything, give yourself leeway, and go down to one is one way. You go down to one. You forget that you had a million things. You go down to one until it's stable and automatic. That's one way, the one at a time thing. You forget that you had 26 and you just go down to one for a couple weeks and then you add them in. That's one way it works. The other way, if you want to be a little more ambitious, is you try to reinstall all of them, but you aim for a 70% success rate. And that's what works for me, and that keeps me on the edge of my comfort zone if I have a bunch of habits, right? And if you succeed at only, you set 10, you succeed at only 3 of them, you need to ratchet it down to make them easier. So you then need to cut down to like 5, right? Because that would have been 60% if you were down to 5, 3 you did plus 2 more. Or you say instead of running an hour, I'm going to put my running shoes on and walk outside. You make it really much easier. And the cool thing about this is if you succeeded 100% for too many days in a row because they're too easy, you actually ratchet it up to make it harder. So I actually like aiming for 60, 65, 70% success rate. It's more successes than not, so you get some morale from that. But it's not like you're aiming for 100 and you're demoralized if it fails. You built some failure in, you're stretching, you're saying, okay, I'm going to try to run, I'm going to try to beat my own personal time. You know, you can start layering it up. You get injured, it'll self-correct. Okay, now I can't do this, can't do this, can't do this. I'm going to cut back. I'm just going to do stretching and rehab. I'm just going to walk outside and go for a short walk. So pick one of those. Trying to just like, no, I really should be back to where I was, just doesn't work. It's never worked for me as a person that's traveled and gotten ill and done a lot of stuff. So yeah, that's a really good question. I'm glad we also got a lot of answers across the book. Do you two have a take on this? I think it's so relevant to everybody now.
I think really good.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
cool.
covered.
Very good. Who's up? We got like a few people. Yes, sir. Your name?
Martin. And my question is, what are the most important skills you learned, and what was the progression?
Why?
What?
Why? Theory. What skills are you learning? What are you applying?
What were the most important skills you learned?
For you, but why? What for you? What are you looking to implement a new habit? Are you looking for new discovery? Do you have a bunch of free time? Are you looking to cut back?
Well, I was just going to give it up to them.
How can you troubleshoot this?
Kind of what sort of answer would be helpful to you personally?
I guess like going through like each skill you learned and how important it was for like your development.
I guess the question is, where are you in your career right now? That what do you need
Like
to
what
change?
were the skills that like took you to the next level?
If you're looking to go
Rephrase,
to the
you're
next
trying to
level.
go to the next level.
Okay, so if I'm trying to go to the next level, what would be the 3 most important skills for me to get there?
Square peg, square hole. We got it.
Our pegs and holes are lined up. So yes, who has something? Charles?
Learning. I mean, learn another language. So English, if you don't have it. Spanish,
I know,
probably the
I'm
second
trying
one.
to
Okay.
Grace is up. We're just gonna stare at her until she has her answer.
I think probably the most important thing I learned was to just tell people about my ideas.
Okay.
I guess for a long time I've just like kept if I had an idea about something I would just be like, oh, it's probably stupid, like I'm not gonna talk to this about people, and I found that like as soon as I just like started opening up to just like anyone that I met in any situation about just things I was working on, things I was thinking, like things really started to fall into line. So I think that's very important.
I had a major shift from when I was an academic to more of an entrepreneur, is shifting from analyzing to action. I made a lot of mistakes, but I've learned in that process, and it's difficult to look back at people who analyze without acting.
Okay.
Okay, the pool of people that have not asked a question is getting smaller. Ergo, we can kind of anticipate what's going to happen. It's kind of like a process of elimination thing. You're the werewolf. Nobody? Okay.
I love
Yeah.
so
Fine,
much.
thank you.
So,
Yes, sir.
We're actually part of the same organization, so if I could sort of
And your name?
Peter, sort of more narrow down the question, because I've been to that Slack channel and tried to post on that forum, and they deleted the post because it seems like an advertisement. And I post there, and we have certain existing networks that we're posting in, but you can only post this. You can only like ask for favors so many times before you sort of burning the relationship. So we're sort of trying to find new other channels that we don't even know where they exist, and without coming off as an advertisement of like.
Yeah, so I think there's a 2-part answer there. I'll field that, and if anybody else wants to go. The first thing you're going to need to ask yourself, and I'm resisting the urge to be Socratic here and really troubleshoot it and be a consultant, but the first thing you're going to have to figure out is like, do you really have product market fit? When people get engaged with this, do they really, 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 really like it? Okay. And then if so, then why aren't they referring friends, and are you empowering them to do so? And are they taking it out to their communities? Because like if Nike shows up on a runner's blog and be like, hi, I'm the community manager for Nike, and you should buy our shoes. Like there's no way to phrase it, there's no way to be clever about it, like that's Nike and they're spamming a thing. Where if I'm like, I just got a pair of Nikes and like, oh, I had like plantar fasciitis and now I don't, and like Nike's great, and I'm running, and like, real runners will write different stuff than like a Nike rep. They'll be like, oh my goodness, like I iced my feet and I did this and that, and the icing was great, and the Nike's like the second best thing after icing. Like a Nike rep would never say that, probably, right? So how do you advocate and get your customers to kind of go forward in the community, be like, hey, these guys are really cool. Then you call up and you say, hey, I see people are talking about this. Can we get featured on a discussion? Do you want to do a Q&A? Do you want to do a Reddit style Ask Me Anything? If you've seen the Ask Me Anything, just Google it. If you don't know Reddit, Ask Me Anything. You know, do you guys want an interview? You want an exclusive? What can we do? You want a discount code? Whatever. So that's the first thing. The second thing is like, you know, Charlie Munger has a quote when asked, how do you find a great spouse? And he says, you deserve one, right? You have to deserve one, right? So like, if you want to come into a community and just like, let me just like get some sales, like you don't know how it runs, you don't know how they talk, you know what I mean? Like Reddit, as an example, will be like, dear sir, I find your running habits peculiarly wonderful, right? And like, if you're like around Reddit, like they're weird people, like in a good way, like you'll talk like that a little bit, like, dear sirs, we have a product announcement that must be commenced forthwith with you, you know, or whatever, right? And it'll read like you're a Redditor. And they'll be like, okay, cool, that person's one of us. And if you're like, hi, this is Nikki from corporate, and like, no. So you might need to actually hang out there or tap into somebody at your network that like knows what's up. And you might need to like join and hang out and like comment on other people's running plans and like see in a low stakes way what they respond to and don't respond to, right? So if you give, you know, feedback, criticism on somebody's meditation program and they're like, oh, like, okay, that's not how they do it there. But again, you were trying to be helpful, so they cut you some slack, right? And then you know, okay, when it's very factual, when it's very first person and this and that, they really like that, and then you post your message. So you might need to actually just spend a lot more time with whatever the promising channel, getting your mind around it. That's my 2 not so quick takes. Does anybody else want to feel that a little bit? Solid. Okay, does that help a little bit? It's like it's tough to spend a lot of time. The other thing you want to look at really quick is it worth investing the time? Can you make it repeatable?
Yeah.
Afterwards, can you make it repeatable? Because if it is, then it's worth a lot of time. Any repeatable channel is worth putting a lot of time into really learning. If it's like a one-off thing, then maybe it's not, right? But if it's repeatable, then really spend the time getting it right. And maybe your ratio is 90% cool free articles answering questions and whatever for every one product announcement on a LinkedIn group or whatever, right? So try to do overwhelmingly giving and really get the community, and then you got a good shot at it. We have a couple people that haven't asked questions. I wonder where they are. Well, they're not over there. Yes, sir.
I guess like
and your name.
First, I'm Will, and I actually missed the names of the 2 people on the end.
What are the 2 people on the end?
John.
John. Sorry.
I'm Josh.
Josh. Okay, thanks. So okay, I'm in I think maybe a similar position to Aaron in that I don't think I have any seed shows installed in my life right now that I'm doing, unfortunately. I have in the past, but not right now. And so I'm going to try that. But then another thing that I think is going to help me in my situation is what John talked about, which is the 5 people surrounding you and the influence that they have. And so my question is there some way other than going through your existing network that's a good, effective way to get new, positive influence people just in your life habitually?
Carlos?
Yeah, I mean,
take your time.
just create a, you know, I would say host your own events of things that you're interested in. That's something I've done that works really well. Like whatever field that you're interested in, those people are going to be similar to what you're looking for, probably. Positive things, right? Not partying,
right.
Drinking, like something fun. Yeah.
I have a few different things for meeting, because I love getting out of my bubble and just meeting new people. And it does, part of it is really just like if you've ever been to a career fair and you kind of just go to the person and you just kind of asking them, like, well, I'm a mechanical engineer, I do this, what else should I ask? It's really just going into it and failing a lot, just so that you can build up the confidence and kind of openness and confidence to go out to speak with people. But also, I'd say if you have Eventbrite, I usually look on like what's going on in the next month, and I just fill up my calendar. 90% of the events I find like I'll have a conflict at the time, I can't attend those. But a lot of time I go to those, and then making sure you spend the time after to meet your neighbor. Who am I sitting next to? Then who's the actual speaker? And part of it also is coming up with good questions that maybe you've had and you haven't been able to answer, and asking those to other people. And then one other tip is, one thing a friend of mine does is he'll host a dinner, I think once a month, and he'll bring those 5 best friends that he always hangs out with, and he says, each person bring one additional person that you know we're not already kind of connected with. And that allows you, it's an environment that you know you're already confident because you're around people that you know, but then you're also kind of confident because, well, it's a friend of a friend, and you can have him introduce you, and it makes that barrier lower. And then in general, just being willing to kind of just go up to people that you don't know and interact with them without.
Yeah. And I'm going to give you an introvert's take after these 2 extroverts that they enjoy meeting people. I don't know how they do it. So this is they're absolutely dead right. Carlos is a proposal spree, host a dinner, host a salon. This is absolutely correct, and it's actually not very hard, and you should do it. You can learn how to do it. But if it's still hard for you to play center stage and you're an introvert, which maybe you are, I am, naturally. I can fake it for a few hours, and then I'm going to go read some books after this. People can go out to party. I'm going to read. It's going to be great. When you go to things, first off, pick stuff that you already like to do anyways, such that if everyone there is somebody you don't like, you're going to have a good time. So if you're not an extrovert, do things that you're going to have a good time, even if the people there are not so great. So in Shanghai, there's a Magic the Gathering tournament. I hadn't played in ages. It was a sealed deck thing. I'm going to play. This is great. Right? And did not meet anybody I liked, and it was totally fun. I got a Spider Queen, and it can petrify things. My credibility just went way down. So I sold the cards afterwards. But you can go do board games if you're a programmer or an engineer. Obviously, there's makers fairs, there's hackathons, there's startup weekend events. Do something you're gonna have a good time, even if you don't know or like anybody there. And scout really aggressively for that. You can set up Google alerts or go to Eventbrite regularly for what those are. And then when you go, if you are an introvert, set a little bit of a mission before you go. My default, if I was going to an event with speakers, a speaker that I admired, would be I'd want to meet the host of it, and I would want to meet, this was a one-person speaker event, I would want to meet the speaker. So I would show up way early, I'd offer to the host to help out. Not being a bystander, being in action is really valuable. There's always a million things going on. At this point, we operationally know what we're doing. We set everything up pretty well, but 2 years ago it would have been super helpful for someone to come up and say, hey, can I be on this camera or do that, or can I help or whatever, can I keep time, whatever. And even now we might be able to find something for somebody to do if they volunteered to help out a little bit. Super easy. Even if people are no, I got it. They're oh, that guy's helpful. He's useful. He's not just a bystander. You go to the speaker before they go on, because afterwards everyone's mobbed. And you say, hey, how's it going? Do you need anything before you go on? I checked out your bio a little bit. That's so cool. How about this and that? All right, cool. Have a great talk. Hey, you want to see the audience with any questions? You want me to ask the first question? Just be kind of cool and helpful. And set a mission. I'm going to meet 2 people, and then I'm going to leave. Right? And set something very reliable and then get out of there. And that way you met the host and you met the speaker, or you played your board games or whatever. And it's good. So kind of very mission oriented. It takes more work if you're an introvert, but you'll get it done and then graduate to hosting your own events, dinners, and so on, which are not actually hard to do, but they can feel like it if you're not naturally in that way of thinking. Cool, I think we have one more question.
Can I add to that?
Please.
What Sebastian said at the very top of this whole thing about time applies to time with friends as well. You can't just put new people in without someone squeezing someone out. And it sounds kind of painful, but time that you're not spending with someone is time that you can spend with somebody else. And if you want new people in your life, you got to cut some of the old ones out. And maybe it sounds painful, but I've never regretted giving less time to people who weren't making my life what it could be. And the only times when it could have, they've come back into my life in much better ways.
Cool. Got one more question. We can take duplicates at the end of this, but we're just going to kind of sit here and wait and take our time. We got one last question that remains to be asked. We don't know what it is.
Okay.
And your name?
My name is Fiorella, and actually, I am from Argentina, and in Argentina, we are not super used to networking. So sometimes happen that I attend to a seminar that someone is great, and I really want to talk with him after, and I have no idea what to say, how I introduce myself, what should I do. So if someone can help me with that, I would appreciate it.
I really like what Grace talked about, really kind of being vocal about what you're interested in. Sometimes you can literally, kind of like Carlos said as well, just throw the net, just, not flood them with your life story, but hey, here's what I'm doing now, here's what I'm interested in. I was wondering if you had any ideas, or, I mean, it can, I think, like I was saying, it's really good to just go out there and fail, because that just starts building up your confidence. Then you also learn like what things are better to ask, what gets better responses. And in addition, just like how you might see a bunch of people coming up to ask someone a question after it, kind of just being like a bug on the wall, just hearing like what kind of questions are they asking, and then maybe you can add something to their conversation while they're talking.
I'll give you one line that's very helpful. Can I ask you a dumb question? Everyone's like, yeah, go for it. And then ask whatever, like, hey, you're so confident up there. How did you do that? Hey, your English is perfect, but I know you're a native Argentinian. Did that take a long time? Did you have to practice? Hey, you know, when you said X in your talk, were you really scared when you started your business and stopped taking salary? We're all curious and thinking something about another person, and people are so afraid to ask. And I'll say, hey, can I ask a dumb question? I do that a lot, and people are always very, very happy to answer. If you do ask for a piece of advice, do it, and then follow up without asking for anything else and say, hey, I asked you what I should do because I want to invest in real estate, and you said the most important thing is starting to get a credit score. So I went out and I opened a bank account, I took a small loan against that, and I got a credit card, and now I've got a credit score. Thank you so much, that's cool, I'm glad to be on the way. Don't ask for anything else, don't ask another question, just say, I did what you told me, and thank you. This never happens. Nobody ever does what they're advised to do. And they really don't write back and be gracious about it. It just never, it statistically rounds to zero how often this happens. People go, wow, somebody that actually does stuff. This person is great. Then, a couple weeks later, a month later, hey, you know, I've continued building my credit. What do you think the next step is? Or what would you advise next? Right, so more action or whatever. And I think that's the most reliable way to get mentors. You ask one question, you do it, you wait a while. You ask another question, you do it, you say thank you, you wait a while. And you say, you've helped me so much, what can I do for you? Or you say, hey, you know, let's go get a coffee, you're being so helpful, I'll buy you a dinner. Or whatever, you know, from there you can take it from there. So I think those two are very good for in the moment. Hey, can I ask you a dumb question? You got started, you're so good at this, what did you do? Or how would you do it? 2 weeks later, I did it. It was really helpful. Thank you so much. You're really great. That was really nice of you, and your talk was awesome. Thanks so much. And then, you know, you're well on your way to knowing them pretty well. And a lot of times those turn to friendships. So it's not necessarily they're like a mentor above you or anything. It can turn into friendship too. So it's pretty cool. Cool. Anyone have duplicate questions? I think we're basically, does anyone have a burning duplicate question? If not, I think there's like a good Q&A here. We can call it right now. Somebody, if you just grab it fast, moment's fleeting. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question. So I found myself doing things that I really enjoy and love doing, but still suffering from fear of missing out on other things that I think are also awesome to do. I'm curious if anybody has any advice on how to deal with FOMO.
I would say most people don't spend enough time actually writing down and clarifying what's important to them. So it's easy to get distracted. Everything can be fun if you don't know what's important to you. Going through that exercise and going back every time you feel like you're pinching too many things, I think it helps a lot to make the right decision and be okay with missing out.
I live by, you have to say no to a lot of good things to have a great life. I've never regretted cutting something out of my life. I've only regretted not doing it sooner. Just live by it.
If you're really unsure what projects you want to be doing, do the shortest possible versions of them. Do versions that can complete in a weekend or a week so that you can get 10, 20, 30, 50 reps. Right? So, I mean, it's possible. I'm not sure if I want to be a coder and write a web app and blah, blah, blah. Go to like a 2-day coding thing. So it just takes 2 days and then be done with it. Right? So like get a lot of reps in as opposed to like doing the 6-month thing and then I don't know if I'm missing out or whatever because like I did the marathon training but I didn't do this. Go to 1 day of swimming. Go to 1 day of playing a musical instrument. Short reps. If you're not sure of like, oh, I like these 10 things and I don't know which one I want to specialize in. Once you find a few things that make you great, then just like, yeah, cut. Cool, we'll hang for a couple minutes. Everyone's been great. Thank you so much for joining us. Cool. It's nice to have like a smart audience. You don't have to stand up there and wait.